Let's continue knitting pattern 2 by making the third row of the King's Cable sweater. My piece now measures 19 centimeters in height, so I will be adding 2 extra stitches on each side of the stockinette rows. And here you see pattern 2, so we will increase this by 1 more row, being row 3. This is my other stockinette side with 1 garter edge stitch. Let's get into it. I will knit my first garter edge stitch as normal, and after that I will make my first increase since I am making size L and it is now 19 centimeters as said earlier. So for M1R you go in from the left rear side with your left needle, and with your right needle you will then knit through the front strand of your loop. So enter and yarn over and take it off. So now you have 1 extra stitch in your stockinette pattern. Now you just continue knit stitching as normal. I now have 19 knit stitches instead of 18 knit stitches. So we have a total of 20 stitches before we start with pattern 2. For pattern 1, we first start with 2 normal purl stitches. So purl 1 and purl 2. And now we will make our first cable. So this one is a C4B cable, where you take the first 2 stitches onto your cable needle and put the cable needle into the back. I personally do not have a special cable needle, so I just use a third needle that is 6.5 millimeters in diameter, but you can just use a more specific cable needle and ideally of the same size, so of 6 millimeters, which you could knit right off of. So knit the 2 stitches from your left needle, and now you put the 2 stitches that you were saving on your cable needle in the back to the left needle, if you can manage, which sometimes is a bit tricky, so make sure not to lose any of your stitches. And once you transfer them to your left needle, you can now continue knitting those 2 stitches as though they were normal knit stitches. This gets a bit tight, so make sure you don't lose any stitches from either needle, and knit 1 and knit the second, and then just make sure that everything spreads well on your right needle. Here you can already see the nice cable pattern forming. We will now continue with more normal stitches, so it will be purling 2 first, so 1 and another 1, and once you have that we will knit 4 knit stitches as normal, so yarn over and then do your first knit stitch and a second knit stitch and a third one, and now do your 4th and last knit stitch before we move on to doing 2 purl stitches. So yarn over and start with making your first purl stitch and then the second. And once we have that, we have 2 more normal knit stitches to complete before we arrive at our center 16 stitches, where we will be making 2 more beautiful cable patterns. The first 8 stitches will be a C8B and the second 8 stitches will be a C8F cable. We will start off with making a C8B, meaning we will first put 4 of our stitches of the left needle onto a third cable needle, and we will then place the cable needle into the back of our project while we then continue knitting the next 4 stitches off of the left needle like a normal knit stitch until the exact center of our piece. Find a comfortable position, and then without losing any of the stitches saved in the back, start knitting the 4 stitches. So begin with your first knit stitch. It tends to be a bit tight, but again you will manage. So as you continue knitting, it will loosen up a bit. This is your second knit stitch. Now do a third one. And then one last one to finish this cable pattern. Loosen up all the stitches so you have an easier time. And now you have actually reached the center, so you see my clip here that marks the center, and you can also already see a very nice pattern forming here. To continue, I will now remove my stitch marker, and then we will proceed with our next cable, which is the C8F cable, to which we will also use a third cable needle, and this time we will put the first 4 stitches onto our cable needle and then place it in front of the project instead of in the back. Make sure you don't lose any of the stitches, and once you have them in front of your work, you will now continue with your normal needles, and you will knit the first 4 stitches that are not on the cable needle, so the ones from the left needle. Find a comfortable position, or at least half comfortable. It's a bit trickier having the cable needle in the front than in the back, but it can be done. I like putting my hand underneath the front needle, if that makes sense. So here I am doing my very 4th knit stitch before we transfer the stitches from our cable needle back onto the left needle. So pick up all the 4 stitches and transfer them back. This works by putting your left needle into the loop and lifting it off, or if you have a cable needle, you might as well just knit it off of your cable needle if it is 6 millimeter thick. So now it's getting tighter and tighter, but with some extra caution, you will perfectly manage to knit the next 4 stitches off of your left needle so that you complete the C8F cable pattern. I find it helpful to push my stitches on the right needle forward a bit while holding the very first stitch with my thumb so it doesn't slip off. And then from there, I enter my loop on the left needle while holding as much as I can to the last or front stitch so it doesn't slip off. And then I guide it a bit with my fingers to stay on my right needle. So continue doing that with your next 3 stitches, everything being a knit stitch, and then you can readjust everything a bit also, since it is getting a bit cramped on the right needle. I'm still not letting go of the front tip so as not to lose anything, but once you get it moving more or less smoothly, you can then start resting in the process and let go of your front tip. So here I am struggling a bit in loosening it up, and you can already see that it is getting a bit better, but it is still quite tight. Just wiggle it back and forth a bit, and then you can already see how beautiful it is coming out. We're basically making the V pointing downwards, which has already been done by me in my first repetition of pattern 2. So you can already see how there are 2 V's sitting on top of each other. I'm now seeing that I knitted everything I wanted to knit, which I somehow managed. There are 8 stitches on the left and 8 stitches on the right of our C8B and C8F. I'm now just marking the center so I don't forget where it was, even though you can always see, but I like marking it. Now we will reverse what we were doing before, so we will now start knitting 2, 1 and 2, and after that we will be purling 2 normal purls. So yarn over and do 1 and another 1. Now we have 4 knit stitches coming up, so get ready to yarn over and then knit 1 and 2 and 3 and the last one of the knitting sequence. And now you need to yarn over again in order to purl another 2 stitches. So purl 1 stitch and another stitch. Loosen everything up a bit And now we have another cable coming up. So this time we are gonna be making a C4 cable instead of a C8B cable, meaning this time we will be putting 2 stitches on our cable needle in front of our work instead of in the back. Then knit the first 2 stitches off of your left needle while not losing any of your stitches that are resting on the cable needle in front. And again, I reach under the front cable needle to get a bit more comfortable, even though comfort is not exactly the word I would use in this pattern, but it works relatively well. So do your 2 knit stitches here, and once you have those, you can then start transferring the 2 stitches on your cable needle back onto your left needle. Here you go. So remove your cable needle, and now we will continue like usual with our left and right needle while it's getting tight, but not as tight as with our C8Fs and C8Bs, so it's quite nice. Knit your 2 stitches here, and then you will see how beautiful it looks as a pattern. Loosen everything up, and then you can admire what you just created. So here you see the nice cable. We're nearly there, so now we just need to prepare for another 2 purls. So yarn over and then do your first purl stitch, and once you have that, purl your second purl stitch. Here you go, and that was the end of pattern 2, or at least of the 3rd row of pattern 2. So this here is your pattern 2. As mentioned earlier, you can now see the V forming here, which has already been going on down here. Since I'm already making my 2nd repetition, you can now already see the 2nd V. And now we need to finish off our entire row by completing the stockinette stitches and the garter edge knit stitch. I will make another increase in my stockinette row in order to comply with the pattern, since I have already reached 19 centimeters in height of my entire project, which equals to the size L, where I need to do my first increase, or my first 2 increases. So this here is my 2nd increase in this row, which is basically the mirror of what I was doing in the beginning. Now I'm just completing my knit edge stitch, and then we are done with this row entirely. This is what it looks like so far, so I'm quite pleased with the way it's turning out, and I hope so are you. So now let's turn the project over, and I will show you row 4 of pattern 1. This here is basically pattern 2 in between my clips. Then you just knit the knits and purl the purls, and in the center you have a complete row of purls, which is equivalent to our pattern that we were just doing with the C8F and C8B. And then just continue knitting the knits and purling the purls until you reach the stockinette part of our project again, which now for me has 19 purls and 1 edge stitch. So this is where we are at. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you like my video. Consider subscribing to never miss anything that I will be posting.